Hey folks, welcome to the Mobius Partners Groovers Talk Tech podcast. My name is Scott King, your podcast host and CTO here at Mobius. Thanks for listening today. We have a great episode teed up for you. One of the major challenges all businesses are facing today is the massive shortage of IT professionals. We have all heard and been impacted by the great resignation that's been going on. This era really started about the same time we had the COVID-19 breakout. People starting to reevaluate their personal situations, realizing they have choices about, where they work, when they work. So many people have been in the same careers for a long time, and just it's really been a major change in the way people think about, their work and personal life. And it comes back to that work-life balance type of topic, and now having options to work remotely where that really wasn't a possibility, potentially even working out of state, or folks even working in the RVs they travel around the world. It's really about getting the job done. It's not necessarily, where you're at these days, but you even see a lot of just, career changes from folks moving out of IT or even starting into IT. So it goes back to, evaluating personal situations, and people have choices out there. And that really brings us to today's topic, breaking down the current workforce challenges and providing, what we'll do with that is, providing successful strategies for building and retaining a winning team. That'll be a part of the discussion today. I'm joined today by one of my counterparts in the IT industry, Marcus Manning, Chief Technology Officer at Smart Financial Credit Union in Houston. Marcus has 20 plus years of experience in the field of IT, includes roles in infrastructure, operations, project management, strategic planning, and data analytics. Been around for sure in a number of different organizations, good perspective. Related to today's topic, Marcus has a history of building highly successful teams and creating work environments that produce quality results and a strong
Thanks so
work
much.
culture.
Thanks for having me, Scott.
Welcome, Marcus. Absolutely. Yeah, let's get started. Maybe share a little bit more. That was a quick introduction, so share a little bit more with the audience around about your background,
Absolutely.
and then we can
Thanks
get in
again
on
for having
today's
me. I
topic.
do appreciate it. So as you mentioned, I've been in the IT industry for quite some time now. I first got started fresh out of college. I have a degree in computer science, and I did a little coding first couple years out, and quickly realized that hey, I need some people interaction. I mean, this coding is great, but I need some people interaction. So shortly thereafter, got into the networking side of things, network administration. And then quickly realized that, hey, there's a skill set that's really beneficial in this IT space. And that skill set is, how do you bring together not only your technical skills, but your people skills as well. And I felt like that was an opportunity for me to kind of hone in on my people skills as well as my technology skills. And I really found that was a very comfort level for me. I feel really, really good about my technology, and I feel really, really good about my people skills as well. So got a chance to get engaged with leadership. So I led a team of about 15 in my first engagement. And as you can imagine, managing a team of that size with your first leadership engagement was pretty daunting. But I learned a lot, and it really helped me kind of propel my career to the next level. So I've spent several years in several industries. I started out in the oil and gas field, did that for about 3 years, and then I spent a small stint in the healthcare industry, and also worked a pretty significant amount of time in the airline industry. I worked with Continental Airlines when they were here in Houston prior to the merger with United. And then I jumped into the credit union space. So, as you can imagine, technology really traverses all aspects of any type of industry nowadays. So the fact that I was able to work in and still continue to work in different industries while staying with my IT background has really been a good ride for me thus far.
No, that's awesome. Definitely just a nice rounded, lots of experiences in a number of different areas, which generally makes up for kind of a good good foundation for a strong leader, right? So congratulations
Thank
there,
you.
kind of the career that you put together for yourself. I had a similar background with, of course, coming out of college, had the coding, the computer science degree and started out coding. I think a lot of us that maybe started out doing that, quickly moved into some different roles along the way, but a really great foundation for, just solving problems, right? And the logic behind things. And I really felt like it's helped me out starting there and then, kind of evolving throughout. But we also see guys that have just made a living and very successful and at just coding their entire careers as well. So that's the beauty of what we do. There's so many different paths that people take, and just hearing those paths is
Absolutely.
pretty awesome. So appreciate you sharing that. Yeah, let's jump in here. We're talking about just kind of the workforce challenges today. A lot of folks think about that in the security realm, but it's really a lot, almost all industry really, and all throughout IT for sure, which is a world that you and I live in. Let's talk about what's working, what's not working. Let's
Absolutely.
talk a little bit
So
about that.
I
I'll
think
just
we're in
kick
a
it off.
very interesting place right now with IT. I think IT has really become the backbone of any organization. We're no longer just nice to have. I definitely think that IT is a necessity, and it's one of those things where a lot of times it's not appreciated until something goes wrong. And that's kind of one of the unfortunate parts of it, but it comes with the territory. So I always use an analogy with some of my colleagues that, hey, if you come home and you turn on your light switch, things are great. You're never going to call the light company and say, hey, thank you for ensuring that my lights are coming on today, right? But as soon as you come on and you hit the light switch and it doesn't work,
Yeah.
you can't wait to get to the phone to get them on the line. Hey, what's going on? My lights aren't coming on. So we feel that way from time to time in the IT space.
Yeah.
But as I mentioned, that's just kind of where we are. So having said that, I think that the people aspect is more important nowadays than they have been in the past, because you can have nice, complex technical systems, but if you don't have the people in place to ensure that those systems are running effectively, efficiently, and adding the value to the business, then I think that that's really where you're falling short. Not to discount or discord, the machine learning and the AI and the analytics behind things that are occurring today, but that people aspect is really what I think is something that we really need to focus on. And it's been a focus of mine over the several years that I've been in management, to ensure that you have the right people in the right seats, of course. Make sure that you have the right technical
Yeah.
acumen, and ensure that the culture that you're trying to continuously perpetuate is really the baseline and the foundation of your people focus, right? Because if you don't have the right people in the right seats, and people are not able to get along, and there's a lot of conflict, that's not going to make for a healthy, efficient operating environment. So really focusing on that people skill set is something that I think most, if not all, organizations should really focus on.
Yeah, we focus, it's something that's been there for a long time, right? The three pillars, the people, process, and technology. We all talk about people being the first part of that and the most important thing, and totally agree with you there. I think some of the things that have been working just around, here lately is just obviously flexible schedules for folks, the work environment that they have, managing their schedule, so being flexible. It really doesn't matter what time of day things are done, but given some options there. Seems to be some trends that are looking to that are moving in the direction of keeping folks kind of happy and such. And then but you also have the other side of that where it's very challenged. Even once you've established the culture, right, and people enjoy working and being a part of the team atmosphere and stuff, it's how do you retain that, and we'll get into some things around that as well. But some of the things that I view with those changes that I just described that are kind of be successful in today's work environment, there's also challenges that creates, and that's, just leadership. It's hard to lead folks when they're, remote like that, and not oversights and issues, stuff like that. So those are some of the things that are challenging today. And then having folks isolated at home, obviously, culture is impacted by that, right? It's you got to have interaction, and every individual at a company has to work at that culture consistently, and that's where things have struggled, and we've got to come up with some responses to that, and kind of improve that component of it as well. But,
Sure, and I think those
any
are
thoughts
some
around
excellent
those
points. I
things,
think that
Marcus?
there are a few
Yeah,
things
yeah.
that we need to do as leaders to ensure that we're, number one, taking care of our people and taking care of the organization. Number two, I think leading with empathy. I think with everything that's going on in the world and everything that's going on outside of the four walls of the office is really impacting us as a people and as a team and even as a culture. So I think leading with empathy, not just having that sympathy or feeling sorry for someone, but really putting yourselves in their shoes. And I think a good way of doing that is having conversations. I have weekly one-on-ones with my direct reports, and a lot of times we don't necessarily talk about, hey, what's the next deadline, or how are you doing on this project? It's more or less how are you doing? How are you doing emotionally? How are you doing psychologically? How are you doing physically? Do you need to spend more time at home? How's the daycare going on with the kids? Is it a mask mandate here? Is it not a mask mandate here? Things of that sort. Real life conversations. So that's some of the ways that I'm handling that. Having those empathetic conversations and really understanding how your employees are doing, not only professionally but personally as well. And then also too, I'm seeing that this asynchronous work environment is something that I'm really trying to push forward as well. A lot of times, especially in the past, we feel like that hey, we don't have a physical clock that we're punching, but there's a virtual clock, right? So hey, I have to be in my chair about 8 a.m. I have to be online. I have to my Zoom or my Jammer status has to say green. I'm here. And I'm not necessarily a big fan of that. I think that we're all adults and we're all professionals, and once we have set clear expectations with our teams, then we hold them accountable. We don't babysit, we don't micromanage. So asynchronous work environment, I think, is something we're going to continue to see, and I think we're going to see more and more of that. But I think that's also going to underscore the necessity of clear communication and clear expectation, right? Because if that's not set up front, then I think both as a leader and as an employee, you're going to fail because you don't necessarily have clear expectations set. So I think that's something that's very important. And then another piece I think is important is what's important to your employee. You're seeing nowadays that, like I said, with the Great Resignation, people are leaving jobs not necessarily because of the lack of compensation. It's the other things. It's the flexibility. Can I work from home, on a schedule, or can I work from home? Can I call you and say, hey, Marcus, I'm not going to be able to make it in today, but I'll ensure that my activities and my work is going to get done? Is that something that's permissible? Is that something that's really part of your culture? So how do you find that niche, and how do you find what really works for you and for your team? And again, I think that ties back to having that empathy and really understanding, meeting your team players where they are. Some people may like coming into the office, so you don't want to necessarily make remote work a mandate, but you want to give people that flexibility for what works best for you. We can't accommodate everything. I mean, if we could, then I don't think any of us will be in the office anymore, or we'd be in the office all the time. So what really works for you, and what can we do within reason that help accommodate what your particular situation is, or what works for you as an employee, and what works for us as a company. So it's really trying to find that balance of leading with empathy and really understanding where our employees are and doing our best to meet their needs so they can be their best and bring their best to work every day, whether it's remote or whether it's here in the office.
No, I totally agree. A lot of good information there, and I think some of it too is just helping employees understand. We ask a lot of them, right, but helping them understand why. What's the why behind it? Why is it? Why are we asking for that? It has to be something tied back to what we're trying to accomplish as a group. Ultimately, producing business outcomes, whatever business that we are in, right? And so many times when you get down to the individual level, it's hard to understand, how what I'm doing at this point in time is impacting our business. So I think that really helps the teams understand, the impact that they're having. That we get a lot out of. Not only do they understand that they, the recognition is there. They can see a result that they're producing that really is an outcome that's beneficial to the company. So I really. That's a big part of it too. You hit on that, and I like what you talked about is the personal aspects of not just calling, and every time you're calling, it's around what's the status of this, or what's the status of that, or why don't I have this, or did you call so and so? It's just hey, how's it going? And maybe it's even a happy hour, or lunch or coffee. We can do more of those things these days, which we haven't been able to a lot over the last couple of years. So things seem to be opening up a little bit there as well. Let's kind of transition into building teams, right? And I think it's been something that honestly we've struggled personally at Mobius. Is we're good at bringing in the senior talent and letting them hit the track running, but when we're trying to bring in folks that are starting in their career, it's a bit of a struggle, and we all work towards that as an organization of kind of building that incubation system, right? And there's a lot of folks out there that want to enter into IT. It's a great industry. Lots of successful careers built in IT. And what can we share with the folks listening that might be interested in starting their career?
It's a good question. It's interesting because I have a cybersecurity position that I'm actually currently recruiting for now, and there's some of the things that you mentioned. That challenge is definitely out there. But for someone that wants to get started in the field of IT, I would say first of all, stay curious. Ask a lot of questions, and there's a lot of information that's out there. Really try to find your niche. What do you want to do? I mean, because when you say IT, it goes from hey, taking a help desk call, to hey, building a complex data center using AWS. Well, you have half your systems that are on the other side of the world. So what do you want to do, and how do you want to get started with that? So I think number one is to educate yourself on what aspect of IT do you want to get into, and the why, right? I know some people think that our career is a nice career. You have to be smart, you make a lot of money, and some of the other nomenclatures that are out there. But as well as I know, Scott, once you get your butt in the seat, and once you start living this thing, it's not necessarily something that it's painted to be. So it's not always tiptoeing through the tulips. It's not always rose-colored glasses, right? So really understand what you're getting yourself into. I would say number one. Number two, I would say find yourself someone that has been in the industry, and someone who can really share with you kind of the ins and outs of what it takes to be successful. And also, to share with you what are the things that you are good at, what are the things that you're not so good at, and then what are some of the challenges that you may come against. So really the good, the bad, and the ugly, right? You don't want someone just to tell you, hey, you're going to come in here, life's going to be great, we're going to get along with everyone, systems are going to work, things aren't going to go down, servers are going to crash, websites aren't going to crash. Let's be open and honest and transparent, with this person. Let them know, hey, these are some of the successes that you may experience. These are some of the failures that you may experience. And these are some of the ways that you can recover. So really find somebody that's going to have that open, transparent, authentic conversation with you about what you're getting yourself into. And then the last piece of that, I would say, is commitment. Once you decided, yes, this is something that I want to do, yes, this is something that I'm interested in based on the feedback that I've received from somewhere. Well, now I'm committed. And then once you make that commitment, that's when you're going to start seeing that dedication, that perseverance, and that persistence, right? Because, some folks feels like that, hey, since it's a hot industry, I can just go and read a book and, write a nice resume, go through an interview, and off we go. Well, no, it's not quite that simple all the time. So there are going to be some doors
Yeah.
that you think should open, they're going to close, and there are going to be some opportunities that may come across your plate, and you may fail. I think that we've all failed at something in some point in time in our career, and failure's okay as long as you fail fast and as long as you learn from your mistakes. So really going in with your eyes wide open, knowing that, hey, this is a good possibility or this is a good opportunity, but there's a possibility that things may not necessarily go the way that I anticipated. So how do you stay agile and mobile enough to recover from your mistakes and continue, kind of pushing the ball forward? So.
Yeah, you were talking earlier just about the glorified IT, and I don't know, you probably have similar experiences, but just out in social type of environments or gatherings and stuff. Yeah, I've heard it just here recently, like, oh, you're in IT, so you're the one making all the big bucks and not really doing anything and living the good life and all that. And it's just so true. There it is I mentioned earlier, great industry, but you pay your dues, you work your butt off, excuse my
Absolutely.
French,
Absolutely.
and it's not all such a rosy environment out there, but a lot of that just comes from the contribution that you as an individual make as well, right? So, things that building on what you were saying, things that I've seen work successfully is just always building your personal network, right? And no matter where you're at, whether you're out to dinner or at a conference or at work with different teams you haven't met before, just always just doing right by other people, helping them out, staying connected, building that ecosystem that's going to help you for your entire career, and something that's worth spending the effort to build out. And in our industry, the smart is just embrace change. I mean, it's happening every day, and when you think you know something, there's something new to be learned, and you have to have that passion to stay up with things, or you'll get behind very quickly. So really, if you don't like change, then it's probably not the industry for you, because that's what's coming at you all the time. And for folks coming, getting started, maybe coming out of college, you work in many cases in project teams in college and individually, but really, this is just kind of a lesson in life as well. It's just about making the folks around you better, and it'll come back to you tenfold. So just really think about what it's going to do what you can do to help others out, and that type of mentality is going to pay off for you big time down the road.
Absolutely. And I also think, Scott, too,
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
a different part of the same question is, us as leaders or seasoned IT professionals, whatever buzzword we want to use. I think it's our responsibility to ensure that we're kind of blazing that trail for others that are coming behind us too, right? So I think at some
Sure.
point in time, someone took a chance on us. I know someone took a chance on me when I first started, and
Yeah.
luckily I didn't disappoint that person. So that's really what I'm looking to do as a leader as well. There may be someone out there that hey, I don't have the experience, or I've even heard people say, well, if no one's going to give me a job or give me an opportunity, how do I gain that experience, right? If everybody's looking for experience but nobody's willing to give me experience, how am I supposed to get experience? So when I'm doing my hiring and bringing talent on board, it's that hey, there's a level of expertise that I'm looking for, But if there's something else that I see in that person, maybe they're a learner, or maybe, they adapt to change well. If it's something that I can work with, then I kind of take that as my personal responsibility to look for someone that I can give them an opportunity to kind of, help them get along in their career path, or at least get started in their career path. Because I think that's the responsibility of any good leader. If you see some type of potential there, to open those doors for others who may not have had that opportunity to have doors open for them.
No, it's great. Great ad there for sure. I know I think we've all had somebody in our career that has kind of helped us, early on throughout, giving us that opportunity. And I can remember one of the leaders starting out in my career. I'm maybe, 6 or 7 years into it, and just one of the leadership team had just said, hey, Scott, I can't guarantee you a job, but I can give you the skills for you to be successful. And that was, kind of stuck with me early on. And I was, it was for me, the relationship there was kind of moved, out of IT. I was working with a business, and the opportunity was, he could, I guess, sense, maybe some things to come down the road for myself, and just really took that was close for me. I've always remembered that, and super guy. It's still am connected to him, kind of going back to that networking comment earlier. But I appreciate that. That's good insight there. As we get into part of the transition that we've been going through over the last couple of years is moving to this hybrid work environments. It's here to stay. Many of us are there, right? I thought it might be good just to talk a little bit about what can we do, as leaders to just manage to this new work environment, right? What are some of the things that we can do to embrace, what's going on here, and correct some of the things that we talked around earlier around, not having the touch that we need, and the interaction and the culture. Let's see if we can share some points on that as well.
I think, as a strong leader, we need to be able to adapt to our environments as well, right? I mean, we're asking our employees to be able to adapt. We need to adapt as well. So, as I mentioned earlier, I think you need to find what works best for you in your organization. There are some organizations that, they can work 95, even 100% remote and still be of value to their organization. And then there's others that, you need that people interaction, kind of that collaboration and team cohesiveness in order to ensure success. So I think number one, how do you find what environment works best for you and your particular company? And then number two, I think we need to find out, how do we make sure that we are presenting an environment where you don't lose that collaboration? Because I think innovation and great ideas come out of collaboration. We don't want to inadvertently create silos to where everybody's, in their home office, they're meeting deadlines and they're doing their thing, and there's no collaboration. So we'll get to the point where we're running an operation as opposed to growing a business, right? So we want to make sure that we stay away from that. So how do you present that opportunity for collaboration? And then also too, how do you ensure that the face-to-face interaction is really beneficial? And I know, about a year and a half through these Zoom calls, I was like, okay, well, I have to go and figure out, is my camera on, and is the lighting good, and did it start on time? Do I have firewall rules that we have to go in and modify? Things of that sort. So it got to a point where there was a frustration level, and you want to just kind of scoot it all over and say, okay, I'll drive into the office. Well, at this point, you're going to have some organizations where that's not possible. So whatever technical issues or challenges you need to work through, if you're going to use that avenue for that collaboration, you need to make sure that they're solid and make sure that they're beneficial. And I think the best way to do that is solicit input from your teams. I think a lot of times as leaders, we forget that our employees probably know more than we do in most cases. And if they don't, then you probably need to surround yourself by a different team. But listen to your team. If they feel like, hey, Marcus, that this hybrid work environment is not working, or this 100% remote environment is not working, then what will work, right? So let's find that sweet spot for the entire team, and not just assume that our way is the best way, or not just assume that 100% remote is for everyone. And then how do we create that environment? I mean, to get more, in the weeds, do we have once a week where teams come to the office? Do we have twice a week where teams come to the office? Do we have stand-up huddles every day? Do we have stand-up Zoom calls every day? Or do we come in every couple of weeks? Do we have team meetings once a month? So, once we determine the best approach, then how do we actually start charting out how we're going to get there? What are the things we're going to do to actually get us there? So I think as a leader, it's really important for us to create that environment that works best for the team and works best for the company, and then also provide our teams with that support and with the tools that they need in order to ensure that collaboration is there and ensure that we're running as efficiently as we can.
Yeah, I think just you mentioned earlier just the figuring out everybody's business is a little bit different, so figuring out what it is that needs to be accomplished, and it's something that you hit on, really figuring out via feedback, not just always, the leaders of the team saying, hey, we need to do this once a day or twice a day or once a month or whatever it is, but really, constantly getting feedback on, do we have the right cadence here? Do we need to change? Is it too much, too less? Are we being productive on these conversations? Because you're right, it was just out of control. Company calls for us, twice a week, and is it just good to see everybody, and that's what it was about mostly. But it was also kind of rehash of what just happened the last couple of days. Gets a little old. So the webinars instead of the face-to-face things in town. I mean, it just got out of control there. But all great points. Just on the topic of the flexibility of hours. For me, what I really see works is you have some folks or some companies that are looking like 8 to 5. You've got to be on, and some job functions work that way. Others are, we're still in some cases requiring that they're there, but employees are that they value that flexible time schedule too, and really pivoting from more, just being online at a certain time of day, but to producing results, right? And if you're getting things done, I talked about it earlier. It really doesn't matter what time of day it is, unless it's more of a business function that you're available, like a help desk scenario or something like that, right? Customer service or something that requires that schedule. But what that's resulted in is so much more productivity from your workforce, because they're doing things. Generally they're putting way more time in than they ever have just coming into the office. So there's a benefit all around from doing that. And I've even started to see where organizations are, they have this empty real estate, but they do feel like at some point in time there's a need to have that, face-to-face, on-site type of activity, where they're not really downsizing their real estate because they see that coming back, and even though there may not be as many people in the office, you still need to maybe account for some social distancing. So just a lot more to consider down the road, and than we have in the past. And I see a lot of forward-thinking organizations looking at it that way. Like, I'm not going to give up my space because I see it as being useful, and I could downsize, but that might be an issue for me as well. So you see, just kind of a pulse on that kind of aspect of it from a hybrid working perspective. But great insights there. Anything else to add there, Marcus?
It's interesting because, going back to that adaptability, and, I think there's an opportunity to run efficiently, right? So, right now everyone may have an office or everyone may have a cube, and no one's using those. Hey, this office has been vacant for, the past 6 months because this person is not coming in anymore. Well, we don't necessarily have to get rid of the real estate, but let's make it a conference room, or let's turn the office into 3 cubes, and now we can sit 3 people here as opposed to just one. So really, getting the best use out of the space that you have, as opposed to just totally getting rid of it. But I do think that companies need to take a close look at, hey, how much are we spending for this space, and how much value are we getting from actually keeping this space in place? So I think that that's something that needs to be evaluated, and I think it needs to be something that's consistently looked at, right? And then also too, I think, again, back to the employee feedback comment, I think that the employees' feedback should be valued as well, right? So if they feel like, hey, we have this real estate and we're not doing anything with it, and is there any way for us to get out of our lease early? Or if we can't get out of our lease early, can we maybe go in and say, hey, can we sublease this out to a different company, and kind of have like a shared, like a workday experience, if you will. So, really thinking outside the box and coming up with creative ideas, as opposed to just having, empty office space and hope people will come back one day.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of different options available to us. And I mean, what's hard about it is you have that space. In a lot of cases, there's not much you can do about it if you're in a lease, and it's pretty painful to cut those checks every month.
Exactly.
When it's not being utilized. So always looking at that. Sometimes you just can't get out of it. It is what it is. But in other cases, there may be alternatives, and really up to the leadership team to be looking at those things and how to maximize investments and those kind of things. Great stuff there. Yeah, one of the things that you brought up earlier, leading with empathy, really just some characteristics of, from a leadership perspective that are working for today's workforces, and really seeing, an evolution within, kind of approaches to leadership and different approaches that have success, and sharing some of that with the listeners here today. Some thoughts on that? I know you have some thoughts on that, so I'll let you jump in.
Yeah, that's kind of that's one of my areas where I'm very passionate about, is leading with empathy and ensuring that we're getting the best out of our people, and making sure that we are really understanding where they come from. And as IT leaders, as you could attest, Scott, most of the people that I've managed throughout my career, I've been in their shoes, right? I mean, I've been on conference calls on New Year's Eve where we have a server down, and my wife's like, okay, honey, New Year's is like 2 minutes away. I'm like, I get it, but we have this issue and we're trying to tackle it. Or we have a website that's down and we need to get it back up, things of that sort. So from a leadership standpoint, I think we need to keep those situations in the forefront of our mind. So when our employees are going through those things, we can recall when we were there and how we felt when we were in their shoes. And what did we want from our leader when we were in that seat? I mean, I've had some good leaders, I've had some not so good leaders. And the ones that were there that really showed me empathy, they let me know that, hey, Marcus, we're here for you. And then the ones that were there that were tapping you on your shoulder saying, hey, are we up yet? Are we up yet? Are we up yet? It's like, well, yeah, nah, those aren't the ones that I would really prefer moving forward. Let's just put it that way.
Yeah.
So really try to put myself in the shoes of my employees, because 9 times out of 10, I've been there and I understand, the boots that they're walking in, and I understand that because I've been in their shoes, and really to keep that at the forefront of my mind, to let them know that, hey, I'm here for you, not only from a leadership standpoint, but from a moral and emotional standpoint as well, because I've been in your shoes and I know how it feels.
Yeah.
And I know what I was looking for when I was in those particular situations. So I think that's really, really important when it comes to leading with empathy. And then another piece I think is very, very important, and I think you have to be very careful on how you approach this one, is how do you meet your employees where they are? There are some work environments where they consider themselves a family working environment. And if you ask them, hey, how many kids do they have? Or they ask you and you have no clue. Well, if you're supposed to be a family environment, is that an environment where you make a commitment to know as much as you can about your employees, or as much as they're willing to disclose, right? I mean, we don't want to get to the point where we're trying to pry into their personal lives, but also think that how you show up in the office is directly impacted by what's going on outside the four walls. So we all have a life outside of the office, and I think leading with empathy gives us some type of insight with what's going on outside of the office. And I think the more you know, or the more they're willing to disclose, with a trust factor there, of course, the easier it is for both the employee as well as the leader, right? So I'll give you a perfect example. So say, for instance, if one of your employees is having personal problems at home, and you're seeing a behavior change in the office. Maybe they're not meeting deadlines, or maybe they're missing meetings, and this person is really not a bad employee. You just see some behavioral changes that are going on. Hopefully you can have those conversations and understand that, hey, this person is not just kind of, falling by the wayside, or they're not, losing some of the commitment that they've had in the past. They're having some problems at home, and really have that empathy to understand that, okay, things are happening at home, and how can I accommodate within reason this person's personal situation until they can actually get back to the point where they were, or what can I do to help them to get back to the point to where they were. So I think that part of empathy is really, really, really important. And again, I think it's a fine line, because you don't want to get to the point where you're really trying to engage in people's personal lives, but you also want to know enough about them to where, hey, if this is something that's impacting you in the office, then let's talk about it, or share with me as much as you feel comfortable with sharing, in order for us to get you back on track or get you where you need to be. So I think those parts of empathy are very, very, very important.
You're right. I think that is so important. And really, every individual is a little bit different on how they, how much they might want to share about their family or anything outside of work, and even within work, how they like to be interacted with, right? And something that I've seen success with is, and we kind of employ the strategy at Mobius is the as folks come into Mobius, we have just assessments that we do, so we can they can understand, the company as a whole just understands the personality, the type, how they like to work, how they like to be, communicated with, all those different things, type of personality that they are, and that's available to them, and for myself as well. So it just, having that information, I know it's somewhat personal, but at the same time, it also helps with this day-to-day dealings. If I know that this is how an individual likes to work, and then it just makes for a much better experience. And it kind of goes back to what you're saying. So you understand where the boundaries are just from day one, right? And so I've seen success with companies using that as well, but not just using that for the employees, but using that as a resource for really the entire company to gain insights on how just people operate and like to interact. So I found that to be pretty useful as well.
Yeah, and I think trust is an important factor to that as well, because if they don't trust us as a leader, then they're not going to trust that we have their best interest, right? So once you establish that trust and let your employees know that, hey, I want you to be successful, in your personal and professional lives, and I'm really out for your best interest. I'm not just out for the company, or not just out for myself. And it has to be in your actions as well, right? We could read a script, or we can, kind of recite what we learned in the several leadership seminars and webinars and conferences that we've gone to. That sounds good, but what are you doing? What are your actions showing, right? I mean,
Exactly.
it's one thing to say what you're going to do, but it's another thing to actually show it. So I think building that trust based on the actions that you take and based on how you show up every day, it's really important as well.
So important, yeah, to start day one, right? To building that trust, and but great point there. Another thing, just really we talked about it, building teams, bringing on, kind of making an incubation system, right? To part of being a leader is onboarding and making that such a fluid process. Not only onboarding your most talented resources, but onboarding really new resources, and some of the things that I really feel like that need to change is some of the expectations coming in where you have there's a lot of folks that are qualified that aren't really getting the shot just because we're asking for certain certifications or some master degrees or just some of the making sure that the requirements for the job really meet the role that we're trying to bring in, and can we back off of those, open up the pool of resources, right, that we can talk to, and leverage just that much more out there. I think we've got to start looking at some of that as well, because many times we're just tossing potential candidates to the side based off of some they didn't have 10 years of experience, they only had 7. Something like that. So anyways, just something that I've seen is as we're building these teams, and we do have limited talent out there, right? And people have options, and that was the topic, the Great Resignation. That's what's a lot of folks are leaving, and it is restricting available talent. Let's take on some new strategies to help attract talent, and then not only attract them but retain them, right?
Absolutely, yeah. And I think some of the things that we need to definitely consider is that there's one thing to have certifications, and there's one thing to have education, which I think is extremely important, if not imperative, in this field. But there are also, as we touched on earlier, there's also potential there as well, right?
Yep.
As if you see something in someone that you feel like, okay, well, yeah, this person is not a 5-star candidate, but they're 3.5, and I think I can get them to a 5, based on leadership and based on opportunities. Then
Yeah.
I think that gives you an opportunity. Hey, this is someone that I'm willing to take a chance on. As I mentioned before, someone took a chance on me, someone probably took a chance on you as well. So I think, the education piece is extremely important. But I think that there should be someone that's well-rounded as well, right? So what are the things that you bring to the table outside of your certification or outside of your master's degree or PhD? That's good.
Yeah.
But what are some of the other things that you bring to the table? And sometimes those other things may outweigh that education that you have. Right, so I think that's something that it's very important, but it's not the only thing that makes someone successful, especially when it comes to education.
Totally agree. Yeah, we've talked about a lot here. A lot of different topics, a number of different points of views and stuff, and I'm pretty sure we could talk for a few more hours or more on the same stuff here. But just to save some cycles for our listeners here, we're gonna close down today's discussion. But really appreciate you joining today, Marcus, and just in the insights that you were able to provide will go a long way for the listeners, and things that we can all consider as we work through the changes in the environment and what we're facing from a workforce perspective here. But one of the things that potentially we could do down the road is just pick this topic back up, maybe 6 months, a year from now, and take a look at what's transpired over that time frame. So that might be something that would be fun to revisit this one if we could make that happen down the road.
Absolutely, I'd definitely be up for it. Yeah, because that's one thing we do know. Things will be different 6 months from now.
No, I appreciate that. All right, so yeah, we hope the information shared today provides some unique perspectives on building and retaining your workforce, which is ultimately going to have a direct impact on the success of your business. Shout out to our listeners for your continued support, and please reach out to Mobius Partners. We'd love to engage and be a valuable extension to your team. Until next time, everyone stay safe out there. All the best.